on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You're listening to The Jan Price Show, and my guest today is writer-director Justin Chon, and we're talking about his brand new movie entitled Ms. Purple. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Just so our audience knows, can you tell us a little bit about the plot of Ms. Purple without giving it away?
Yeah, Ms. Purple is about a brother and sister, Casey and Carrie, who have been estranged, and because of an ailing father, they come back together and they revisit their past.
Okay, and where did this take place? Where did you film it?
The film takes place in Koreatown, Los Angeles.
Okay, and is that where you filmed it also?
Yes, that's where we filmed.
Okay, so you wrote this as well as directed it. So tell us what made you decide to write about something like this?
I have a younger sister. She's 3 years younger than me, and I always thought that the brother-sister relationship was so unique because, you know, brothers, they kind of just fight it out or rough it out, and sisters can kind of talk it out, but between brothers and sisters, I feel like the communication is a little bit different, and sometimes it's measured or sometimes it's really wild. But I think that the simple fact that, you know, one's a man and one's a woman, the communication tends to be a little bit more complicated. And, you know, I wanted to explore that through film. And some of my favorite films have been, you know, Kenneth Lonergan's You Can Count on Me, and you know, Tamara Jenkins' The Savages, and you know, those are kind of inspirations for this film.
Well, it's a beautifully photographed film, and also the score. I loved the music on this movie. Are these the cinematographer? Is it somebody you've worked with before, or is this a new who did the cinematography?
Yeah, Andy Chang is my cinematographer, and he also did my previous film Gook. And yeah, you know, we really spent a lot of time talking about the cinematography, what we wanted, and you know, the title of the film is called Ms. Purple, and in the Korean culture, the color purple is the color of mourning someone's death. So, you know, as you saw in the film, Casey is getting ready to put her father, for him to pass away. So, you know, essentially she's mourning his death, and then the complementary color to purple is green. So when you look at the film in sort of the daylight highlight tinges of green, and also in the blacks they're green, and that was motivated by symbolically the things she does for money that are kind of self-compromising for the sake of, you know, taking care of her father and filial piety. So a lot of it is, to what extent is your responsibility to take care of your parents? Yeah,
there are a number of wonderful messages underlying in this film without giving anything away. I found what was in the colors were very vibrant, and the contrast, just like you were describing, and yet the film itself, the topic is rather on the dark side. So I thought the juxtaposition of all the vibrant colors in the movie and yet the topic of the film was really kind of brilliant. I mean, definitely in the way that you did that. Was that a conscious choice throughout with your cinematographer and yourself?
Yeah, you know, I felt that you know, the topic of death, and also the topic of revisiting, you know, old wounds with family can be very, very sort of dark and heavy. I really felt there needed to be some sort of levity to the film, and also you know, that visual sort of levity I thought was very important. And then also, if you saw the score, you know, Roger Swin did the score, and he also worked with me on my last film, and we talked a lot, and I pushed him pretty hard to come up with a score that at times could be you know, very melancholic and dramatic, but then at other times can be very kind of just light and nostalgic. So if you noticed, there's like more of a classic score in the style of maybe an older, you know, film from the 80s, like a John Williams score, where it's recognizable, repeatable, and simple. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, the other the other moments was a very Spanish influenced score with nylon guitars, and that also is correlated to her exploring outside of her community, which is her relationship with Octavio, who's a Chicano man.
I loved that too. I loved how you used. I mean, the score really is amazing, and I loved how there was the Spanish theme, and also exactly that, the cultures. Even though she was going outside of her culture and looking, but the similarities in some ways, and yet lots of differences too, obviously. But I thought that was fascinating. What made you decide to go there to explore that?
Yeah, so Koreatown in Los Angeles is called Koreatown because the businesses and all that stuff is mostly Korean owned and all that. But the people who inhabit Koreatown, probably the majority in terms of population is Mexican or Chicano. And people don't understand, but like that Koreatown is actually numbers wise more Mexican than it is Korean. And I think nobody really pays attention to that. So I thought it'd be interesting for a girl who is, kind of trapped in her bubble in Koreatown, has never had sort of relations with people who are her next door neighbors, and I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. Also, it's sort of on a macro scale for Casey, our main protagonist, is that she feels very alone in the world. But connection doesn't have to only come from your own community. It can come from, a lot of other communities, such as in this film, the Chicano community.
And I had no idea that was what was going. That Koreatown had so much of the Chicano community with there. I mean, I thought that's interesting to hear that. How did you, Tiffany Chu is your lead actress, and she was absolutely wonderful in this film. How did you find her? Had she been in anything else that you had done before?
No, this is our first film, and basically, one of my goals for this film was to find an Asian American actress and actor that I wanted to kind of put on the map and give exposure to. So I didn't want to hire two more well-known actors. I wanted to discover two people, and Tiffany, I found her through Facebook. We posted on Facebook about the casting, and she was one of the women who wanted to audition. Wow.
Now that's interesting. I never heard of anybody casting through Facebook. How does that happen?
I looked everywhere. I mean, I looked through, friends, and also I was on Instagram, trolling, just kind of scouring profiles and direct messaging people. So I'm sure a lot of people thought I was a creep, but yeah, no, we started posting through Facebook, through our own networks, and Tiffany is an actress based out of Los Angeles, and she's just somebody who ended up applying through Facebook, and we brought her in, and we did a read, and I felt like she had this intrinsic melancholy that I was looking for with Casey, so. The acting part of it, we worked on over the course of 5 weeks of rehearsal.
And this is her first major film.
Yes.
Wow. And she's stunning to look at, but Absolutely. She does a wonderful job with it too, as does the actor who plays her brother. Is that Teddy Lee?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about him and his background.
Yeah. So he's also from Los Angeles, and he kind of he went to UCSD for acting, but kind of, had given up acting. And I have a friend of mine named Andrew Ron. He's also a director. He directed a film called Spa Night. and I asked him, I said, hey, I know you did a big search for Korean men for your film. Was there anybody that you thought was incredible but just wasn't right for your film? And he's like, yeah, I'll send you some tapes. So he sent me a bunch of audition tapes for his film, and Teddy was one of them. And I said, who's this guy? Immediately I knew he was something special. And then I had a conversation with him on the phone. He's like, well, I'm not really acting anymore. And I said, well, like, why don't you just take a look at the script? And he was really skeptical about, me actually wanting to hire, because I never auditioned him. I just knew he was going to be great for the role, and he was really skeptical, like, if it was even a real film or not. So,
yeah.
Because it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but and he was just kind of like, so I just got the part. I don't know. I was like, yeah, man, just show up. It's for rehearsals.
The easiest gig he ever will get in his life, probably.
I think that's why he was like so skeptical about it, because he really didn't have to do anything. I was just like, yeah, I want to hire you, and it seemed probably too good to be true on his end.
I'm sure he did think that. Yeah. So then once he got to the set, how did he feel?
Yeah, I mean, but he realized it was going to be hard work. I pushed both of them really, extremely hard in the rehearsals, and I'm sure they both wanted to kill me at the time. But I think, I didn't really let them watch a cut of the film until Sundance. And I think once they watched Sundance, watched the film at Sundance, I think both of them were pretty proud.
That's amazing. So, talk a little bit about your experience at Sundance.
Yeah, Sundance has been incredibly supportive of my career, and I've been there as an actor, but then with my film Gook was kind of my sort of welcoming as a writer director. So this, I was just incredibly humbled and thankful to them that they programmed my film in the U.S. dramatic competition. And what I was the most proud of was that this is a film made for a very modest budget, and probably the next sort of cheapest film that was premiering there was about 10 times our budget. And, I was really kind of proud and hopeful that, filmmaking is still possible as long as you have a great story and you have a good team, and it doesn't just just because it doesn't always require just a ton of money to make a great film.
Right.
So I was very proud of that.
Right. And, and you're exactly right. I mean, when you have Steven Soderbergh, filming many of his movies now on an iPhone, which has become his preference. I met him at Sundance this year, and we talked about that a little bit. So yeah, it that's become his preference. He said it's just easier to do it that way. I mean, he prefers it, just as a preference over it. So what was the response for you at Sundance for the film, for Miss Purple?
Oh, it was incredible. I always believe that to tell a universal story, you have to tell the most specific story, because it just plays into the humanity of the characters, and that's basically the response was, this film and the message kind of expanded beyond color lines, and I think the experience of losing a loved one, I don't care who you are, everybody has to go through.
Right.
So that in that sense, it was very universal, and people from all walks of life, were coming up to me afterwards and saying, oh yeah, I have a brother or a sister like that, or I just lost my dad, or and people a lot of people were very emotional, talking about hospice and healthcare for their parents, and not getting any help, and it just a wider range of experiences that people wanted to talk about after the screenings, which was why you would what you hope for when you make a film like this.
Exactly. And it's obviously it is universal themes for all of us, so and how we're all interrelated and our experiences are not separate just because of nationality and, color or whatever. And I think that's what's so wonderful about movies and movie making, because we get to see how universal we all are. So.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's one of the main driving forces for me to make films is how we're so much more alike than different.
Exactly. And yet, with everything that's going on in the world today, there's more, trying to separate all of us.
Exactly.
And rather than coming together. So your film does that, definitely. There's no question about it. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today my guest is writer-director Justin Chon. And we're talking about his brand new movie entitled Miss Purple. Justin, what's your directorial style?
I'm always trying to figure that out.
It's a work in progress, huh?
Yeah,
different for each movie, perhaps.
It really is, actually. I'm constantly trying to push myself and sort of what I think my identity is as a storyteller. And there are a few things that I feel are important to me that I try to include in every film. One is that I'm trying to bring empathy towards my community, and then secondly, I'm always trying to figure out how I could show through film how we can all coexist, and then third, like we had just talked about, how we're much more similar than different in all walks of life. But in terms of visual style and the way I tell a film, I'm always trying to figure out what's best suited for the particular project, and Gook was a black and white film, and I really felt that there was a period piece, it's set in 1992 during the LA riots and the Rodney King beatings and verdict, and I always felt like people always thought of that as a black and white issue, hence the black and white photography. But I always thought that there were so many other people affected by those riots, which is why I shot in black and white. And also, being 1992, by this point, I think 27 years have passed. It felt like there was some distance, so I want to shoot that in black and white. With Miss Purple, I desired to make it, in color, and how to tell the story in color was very much, thought about, and Gook was very much handheld. A lot of people think Miss Purple is very just handheld, but it's not. If you go back and watch the film, there's just as much on sticks and tripods as it is handheld. Everything. There's very quiet moments that are very steady.
Right.
So these things are all kind of technical, boring stuff, but I'm just trying to figure out what is best suited for the story I'm telling. And when I write the films, I'm not trying to think in terms of, okay, I did this last time, and it's more like, okay, I want to talk about this particular subject or this theme, and I just write, and as I write, I start to see in my head, but I'm not I don't set out beforehand and put parameters on what I'm trying to do.
And that's the best way to allow the creative energy to come through you if you don't put boundaries on what you're doing. Very interesting juxtaposition, though, that Gook was filmed in black and white and Miss Purple is so vibrant with the colors. So I think that's really fascinating just there. And I think your choice of doing Gook in black and white because there are black and white issues, obviously, I think just as you said, is also brilliant. What made you decide to make a movie like Gook? Because of course those issues haven't changed in all of these years, unfortunately. We wish they had, but they haven't. Yeah. So what year did you make a Gook, and why did you decide to make a movie about that?
I think I shot that in 2016. I decided to shoot that because my family was looted during the riots. and my dad had a business in Compton/Paramount, and I remember vividly. I was 10 or 11, and it was the 25th, and it was going to be the 25th anniversary of the LA riots. There was all these documentaries and films that were being made about it, and I just knew that if I didn't kind of share my experience, that the Korean American portion of it would be overlooked. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know, but Korean businesses were the most affected during the LA riots, and because of there was a lot of animosity and racial tension between Koreans and African Americans at the time. And a lady named Soon Ja-do shot a girl named Latasha Harlins in the back and was acquitted with no jail time. So there was a lot of anger and tension between the two communities. Then this LA riots thing happened, and some of the first businesses that were targeted were Korean businesses. And I just thought, like, okay, 25 years have passed, like, let's have a discussion. And specifically on a more wider scale, like, we're still police brutality has become increasingly more violent than it was even back then. That was a beating. Now in recent times, there's a lot of shootings and killings, and with cell phones is much more. You can't really turn a blind eye. I wanted to explore sort of all those themes.
And you're right, we can't turn a blind eye, to it. So, what was the reaction to Gook? I mean, did you go to Sundance with Gook?
Yeah, we went to Sundance in the next division. We won the audience award in that division, and yeah, I mean, we were there 2017 with that film, and a really great reaction. People. It really. My hope was that the film sparked conversation, and I think it did. A lot of people. I've had a lot of meaningful conversations with Chicanos and African Americans about the time, and it was it's also kind of awesome that I could speak to the fact that my family went through that. It wasn't me on the outside looking in. I'm telling this story from the inside, from personal experience. If you get a chance, it's on Netflix. But
I was going to say, where can people go and watch Gook? It's on Netflix. Okay, so
it's on Netflix. But I will say this: Netflix does this thing called pan and scan, where they scan the film and they cut it to their specified aspect ratio, and they kind of like pan however they choose to. And if you want to see the true form of it without that sort of them deciding where to pan the camera, if you go and buy it on iTunes or whatever, you get the real version of it. But you can see it. You can see it on Netflix, and the guy who plays Mr. Kim across the street at the liquor store is my real father. So,
oh wow! Yeah, well, that's kind of fun. Yeah.
He's really funny in the film.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. Well, I mean, I didn't know that Netflix did that, so that's a real nice little information for us to all know, for sure. Yeah. Well, we only have a few seconds left. Where can people see Miss Purple?
So, Miss Purple it premieres in Los Angeles September 6th, and then it expands to New York September 13th, and then after that, it'll expand to most major cities.
Okay, great. Because, wonderful. So I highly recommend that you search out Miss Purple. Thank you, Justin, for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you've been listening to the Jan Price Show all about movies, and if you have missed any of our past shows, please go to the website, my website, thejanpriceshow.com, and all of the shows are archived there.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.